Let's talk Tanya for the 8th of Sivan of a leap year. We're in the middle of a discussion about perpetual creation. In yesterday's Tanya, we spoke about this idea of the Baal Shem Tov that God is constantly recreating everything at every moment. And this leads us directly into our next conversation, which is what we're starting today, chapter 2 of Tanya. Another big idea of the Baal Shem Tov, the idea of Hashgacha Pratis, or divine providence. The Alter Rebbe says that there are people who deny the concept of divine providence. Why do they deny the concept of divine providence? Well, we still have that today. These aren't people, we're not talking about people who don't believe in God. There are certain people, you go to them, do you believe that there's a God, a creator? Yes, 100%. Do you believe in divine providence? Do you believe that God actually is involved, intimately involved in all the details and the nitty-gritty of creation? Nah. But then you ask, but why not? Can God be involved? Well, definitely, if he wants, he can intervene. But why would he? He created a beautiful world and it runs according to certain laws of nature. To think that God is actually intervening at every moment, that's ridiculous, these people say. But the Alter Rebbe says, once we have an understanding of perpetual creation, we understand how actually the ridiculousness is to assume anything but Hashgacha Pratis, to assume that divine providence doesn't exist. Why is that? The Alter Rebbe gives an example. The example he gives is of Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the Red Sea. How did the splitting of the Red Sea happen? So the Pasuk tells us in Shemois that when God wanted to split the sea, so he caused a powerful easterly wind to blow. It blew the entire night, and ultimately it ended up blowing the water so that the water stood like a wall. Now it's easy to understand that if for one moment that wind were to stop blowing, what would happen? Well, the water would just capsize back and start flowing as it always does, which is what ended up happening when the Jewish people finished going through the Yam Suf, the Red Sea, and the Egyptians were caught in the middle of the sea. Why is that? Because the nature of water is not to stand like a wall. The nature of water is to flow. So if you want water to act in a way which is contrary to its nature, you're going to have to exert a constant pressure and force upon it so that it should remain in that way. Now, this is very different than, for example, if what we call Bria Yesh Meyesh, creation something from something. So, for example, if you have a silversmith takes a block of silver and makes a candlestick out of it, the silversmith doesn't have to keep on creating it at every single moment. Once the silversmith finishes creating it, it gets sold to someone, that person uses it, lights Shabbos and Yom Tov candles with it. And the reason is because all the silversmith did was changed its shape from being a block of silver to a candlestick. So no constant force or energy is required. But in the case of the splitting of the sea, over there we did need a constant energy. Why? Because we want to get the water to act in a way which is contrary to its nature. How about the creation of the world? The nature of nothing is to be nothing, and that's what was before the world was created. There was nothing there. Now we want that out of this nothingness, there should be something. How does that happen? Well, God has to force it into existence at every single moment. If for one moment God were to stop creating the world, if God were to stop uttering the 10 utterances, all of the world would just revert to nothingness. So the problem is that these people who deny the divine providence, they're thinking of the creation of the world like the creation of a candlestick. And they're missing a very important point, says the Alter Rebbe. The idea of perpetual creation and how it must be perpetual creation because we're not dealing with an entity in the first place, that you're just changing its form. Tomorrow's Tanya, we will take a little deeper dive into this and we'll have an even deeper understanding of how it is that perpetual creation leads us to understanding of Hashgacha Pratis, of divine providence.